Starting over is the opportunity to come back better than before, as said by Ryan Khan. On this Women's Day, we will look at the critical issues of women who actually need to take a significant break at some point in their career, maybe for family, motherhood, parents, and a lot of other reasons, but then return to the workforce. Wishing all the women today a happy Women's Day, the ones who are watching us as well as the ones who are on the show. Welcome to the show, Deepali Naair, who's Director Sales and Digital at IBM, Sarika Naik, CMO and Chairperson, Diversity and Inclusion at Capgemini India, Chaudhuri-Ghosh, SVP and Head Digital at Star Union Dai-ichi Life Insurance, and Neha Bagaria, Founder and CEO at JobsForHer. Welcome to the show, ladies, and a happy Women's Day to you all.
Thank you for inviting us.
Always a pleasure. My first question coming to you, Deepali, is overall, it's always been a major hurdle when a woman comes back with a career break, right? Because I think employers have not really heard of men taking a career break. So I don't think so. They are really used to that entire funda of hum chutti pe jaake aa rahe hain, that kind of a thing. What's your view of this entire scenario?
Hiral, first of all, my congratulations to BQ team for picking this up, because this is a very relevant topic. And yes, mostly it's the female executives who end up taking a break. And you rightly pointed out, this is typically either for elder care or for childbirth. The good news is that it's acceptable. It's not a taboo. It's all right to take a break, for childbirth or even for elder care, because the society has assigned us, that responsibility. The challenge happens that when a future employer is looking at you, they are wondering two things. One, they don't know how much to pay you, where to do the match for your salary, the last drawn salary. Should you be paid, should you be considered equal to people, who have worked for, the last 2 years? Let's imagine if you've taken a 2-year break. So that's the one challenge that, future employers face. The second challenge that they face is that the hiring manager may not be so convinced that you've stayed relevant. And therefore, they're taking a risk. It's a higher risk as far as, the mindset is concerned when you are taking a woman back, who's had a long break. So I think these are the two issues that we need to discuss. And therefore, what can female candidates do if they do decide to take a break, to deal with these two issues and to reassure the future employers?
Absolutely. Very well put as well, in terms of, the issues that are being faced as well. Sarika, if I come to you, again, at the organization that you work and at organizations that you would have worked in the past as well, how do you see, leadership teams, management teams viewing women who've taken a career break? As Deepali mentioned, yes, it's acceptable. I mean, you have the rights to do it, but are they viewed equally?
So thanks, Hiral. And, Deepali very clearly pointed out the two main challenges when you are looking at women returning to work. To be very honest, for the kind of talent gap that exists in India, where, the supply demand, there's a big mismatch, having women who have been capable, who are trained, to lose them out completely clearly is a very sad thing. So, more and more organizations are looking at tapping back into the talent. So if you ask me, the concept of returning women, after a break is very acceptable. And if you ask me, at a leadership level, really is where the focus is. So more and more organizations, it's no longer a question whether you should have them or not have them. The question is, how do we enable them so that they can join the workforce and hit the ground running? So many organizations, and I know for sure that, the IT services industry is in that sense a little ahead, have programs where they have training programs where women can, quickly come to speed, especially when technology, it's changing by the day. So how they can quickly come to speed and in some way, not feel like a misfit when they join. Second, many organizations like ourselves are also having buddy programs. So let's say, before they onboard somebody who is, joining us after a break, they have somebody who helps them, come to speed on the organization culture. They kind of give them an orientation about the organization, what to expect, what not to. And once the women join, they continue to handhold them till such time that they are then comfortable and they feel part of the organization. So I would say it's no longer a question of do we want them or want them or not back. It's really a question of how quickly and how in a very nice way can we welcome them back into the workforce.
Absolutely. In fact, when you talk about, specifically, especially after COVID has hit, the impact in terms of what hybrid working has created, that's actually made people understand that yes, you might not need be, you might not be at office 100%, and probably you can still work from home, right? Coming to you overall in terms of Anu, taking insurance as a subject, as a business, insurance from a sales perspective, a lot of it has been hybrid as well, right? Way before everyone even understood what hybrid working was. How are you seeing the sector which you are in and looking at women who've taken a career break?
Thank you very much, Hiral, for the question. And I think it's very relevant because COVID was the time when, there was a lot of digital adoption that kind of got accelerated. And specific businesses like insurance were actually working overtime during this time because there were a lot of claims to be paid, a lot of clients to be reached out to. There were many queries, and a lot of technology output, and a lot of the employee management, all of that moved more towards a hybrid system. And it's one of the reasons why in most of the insurance companies we still continue to be either hybrid or even work from anywhere. You're not like necessarily compelled to come to the office, which is of course at the same time, if you want to come to the office, you're most likely to move in. But it's primarily reaching out to the customers. Today the customers are not necessarily walking into a branch to get a query done. They are primarily either reaching out through your website, or they are reaching out through your call center. And a lot of things can be done, do it yourself or do it for me format, where somebody is there to help you out. So in terms of insurance, I think whether it is general insurance, life insurance, health insurance, the way I've seen people, one is that they have understood the value of insurance. As far as women are concerned, earlier during COVID, I've seen many cases where they had no idea that they had that the husband had an insurance policy, whether it was a health policy or even a life policy. So that has kind of triggered the need for people to understand where are the documents kept. Do they have a health insurance? Do they have what are the hospitals they are supposed to go to? So that is something that I mean, in the 25 years that I've spent in the industry, I have never seen such a rampant, need to understand where are the documents, how do I get my insurance claims done. So I think from that angle, although, probably that is not the way, you would have never thought in 100 years that a pandemic is going to hit us. But the industry that way has gained to the extent that we now have a little more aware consumers. The products are also ever changing, and I think as an economy we are also becoming we are becoming more adaptable to new challenges, and the world is changing very rapidly post COVID for the better, I hope.
Neha, coming to you from a job seeker to a job giver, a job creator, how has the journey been for you?
Well, Hira, it's been quite an interesting journey. And I think more than job giver, we are more of a job connector for women and a job creator. So first and foremost, when I was a job seeker, it was actually very interesting also to see the journey, how it evolved from when I was a starter and I had just graduated from college versus when I was a restarter and I was getting back into the workforce after taking a break. It was, of course, a far more difficult journey to be a job seeker when I was a restarter, because to get companies to understand the value of taking a break, the life skills that you learn from that, and then the fact that you're ready to jump back into the workplace is quite an uphill climb. And that's what made me realize actually that we need to create these job opportunities when it comes to women returnees. And we need to connect the women with all the kind of jobs that are available with companies who are willing to take them back.
Right. Another aspect that, I want to consider over here is, and this is one of the statistics that I was reading, is that the number of working women, once they take a career break, is on a downward trend as well, right?
Yeah.
And that's very interesting for me, whether to understand that, is it the psyche of the women who are taking a career break to not come back, or is it the lack of support system? I mean, which way do we go to? Because right now we're talking of women empowerment. Yes, there are a lot of men who want the women in the house, maybe your father, your husband, your brother, who want you to work, right? So why is that trend moving downwards? So how do you change that psyche? Because it's probably, and interestingly, it says that it's women from urban area who don't want to go back to work versus
Yeah.
rural. So is it the mindset that, yes, my husband's earning, मैं क्यों जाऊं वापस काम पे? Yeah, I mean, I have a family who's already providing for me. Why do I go back to work? Dipali, what would you have to say to this?
I think, Hiral, you've hit the nail on the head. That's what I see. Let's look at the data. In India, most working women come from double income families. So for every working woman, every 100 working women, 95 of them belong to double income families, right? And they tend to take a mid-career break at a stage when they're doing well and the partner's doing well too. So financially now, suddenly there's no longer any need for them to work once they decide to take a break for whatever reason. That's when the inertia sets in, because you get used to a certain lifestyle, which is easier. I will say that. Okay. It's easier to be at home and not get to work and still, have, let's say, the same economic and lifestyle, for your family. Now, therefore, there requires a huge push, for them to come back. Now, that push has to either come from the family, society, the previous employer, new employers, or they themselves. And that's what's lacking. The second thing on the mindset issue also is that at the time that we all decide to take a break, I've taken 2 breaks, for example, one during childbirth. So that was forced on me because my son was not well. I was away for a year. The second one, I took the decision myself. My mother was not well, to take care of her, right? Now, when I took my first break, I wasn't sure whether I was not in a state of mind at the beginning of my break to even think through, when am I coming back, whether I'm coming back, etc. And somewhere midway, I realized that I will need to go back. I may want to come back. And that's where I want to discuss strategies of what you can do during your break to ensure that you have a smooth, going back. But when I took the second break, I was ready. I knew exactly what I would do during the break to go back. Now, this is my question to everybody who's listening. When you take the break, is it with the mindset of going back, or do you think of it as a holiday and, you even think about whether you want to come back at all or not? So I do think, Hiral, it's a lot to do with mindset and the lack of support system, and the conversations around you do not make it easy. I just want to break with an anecdote here. If a guy was to take a break in India, people would ask, how would your family manage? What are you doing financially? What happened? When I took my second break, and I went for a, big fat Indian Marwadi wedding, which are typically 3 to 4 days. And before that, I only used to go show my face for one function, so somebody asked me saying, Didi, how come, you're here for so many days? And I said, I've quit my job. And I was told, अच्छी बात है. अब आप घर पे ध्यान रख सकते हैं, अब आप घर पे फोकस कर सकते हैं, so the societal reaction is also very different. There's no social pressure for me to go back.
No, absolutely. A very well put point that with Indian culture, yes, they in fact encourage you to be at home. And yes, things are changing, but not everywhere, right? Yeah, you have taken a career break as well. What were the key challenges that you faced when you had to actually come back?
Well, Hira, there's been a lot of challenges that I saw when it comes to women who've taken a break in their careers and want to get back to work, because absolutely employers are not used to it at all, because men don't take it. And if you look at the typical workplace today, it is built by men, for men, of men. And then here's this woman who decided to step out of her career mainly to be there for her family. So the kind of questions that women usually get asked when they're getting back to work after taking a career break usually revolve around the personal sphere. It is around that do you think you're ready to be able to jump back into work? Are you sure you're going to prioritize your work and your job over your family? Do you have the kind of support structure that is required to be able to handle your family responsibilities? And it has very little to do with questions on their skills and qualifications, but more on their readiness to be able to restart.
Sarika, from a break perspective, what would you advise a woman who's taken a career break? How should they make sure that they are relevant to their career when they come back as well and not completely living in isolation?
So here, we live in a society which does so much of conditioning for so many years that it takes a little unlearning and quite a lot of unlearning to really, for organizations, for individuals to start thinking about women when they want to come back. What are the, things that they need to take care of? So I would actually first start with the self. I would say before we even go to the society and we go to the organizations, it starts with the self. And, really, I feel that besides, of course, what Deepali mentioned is, the financial stability that a woman kind of has by the time they have a family, etc. I think the most important thing which our women are, need to see how they can develop is an ambition. It's not capability. It is not drive. None of it. It's just ambition. Like, we whenever we sit through, programs where we have men and women, in a separate room, and we say, imagine yourself 5 years from now. What do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself? Women who are existing workforce themselves will say, oh, I think I will probably move to the next level, or probably I will, be a delivery head or some such thing. The same question asked to a set of men, you will have multiple hands go up saying, I think I'll be the CEO, or I'll be a CFO, or I'll be at the top of the table. So it all starts with ambition. And I think it all starts with the self. So unless the self is motivated to want to go back, no amount of, things that the organization set up, it's not going to work. So it really depends on all of us on this call who are listening, who will be probably seeing this, to help create that ambition of being the best version of yourself. Now, I'm not, I think working, not working is an individual choice. So, I don't want to say that, only those who work are, discovering the best side of themselves. No, it's an individual choice. But whatever choice you make sure that you are the best version of it. And if you're doing it because you believe that that's the right thing to do. From an organization's standpoint, of course, like I said, and to be very honest, many organizations are doing it. I know at Capgemini, we have a very strong program, robust program around this, where we have a set of training, virtual training, where, they can quickly skill up, especially in the technology side. They also have programs which help you sensitize the people around you, that, you have somebody who is returning after a break. So what could be some of the, sensitive points to avoid? So, manager orientation is something that organizations do, and I would strongly recommend it. And lastly, but not the least, I think a buddy, somebody who will really walk with you, be around, especially when you have those difficult questions. Is it even worth it, going for this kind of a thing, or am I just being left behind? Especially when women come back after 5-6 years of break, you feel bad. There are people who were your peers are now your managers, so to deal with that, counseling sessions would be very helpful. But in my view, honestly, I think it starts with the self, and we should encourage the women, our friends, our colleagues, to remain committed and invested in themselves.
An interesting statistics that we've been picking up is that the number of working women who are coming back, to pursue their careers, that's in a downward trend in India. And specifically, if you go to see it's urban, where this kind of a phenomenon is much higher than rural India. What would you have to say to this?
Yeah, here the numbers are pretty bad. So out of 100 college graduates, 40 of them are women right now, which is great. Yeah, and that education gap has actually been met by our previous generation. But out of those 40 women, only 8 pursue a career. And out of those 8, 4 of them drop out within 3 years. And that's why you're seeing 50% of women who start working in India, they are dropping out of their careers. And the reasons behind these are usually life stage related. And we like to call them the 4 M's for why women take a break. The first one really is marriage. And in that case, if that woman gets married, she feels that, okay, the point of her education was to find a good husband, not a good job, and that's been met. or her in-laws might not be okay with her working, and so she, quits work. Or the second part, which is mobility related, there are a huge number of women, about 70% of women in India, they migrate to a new city when they get married. And that, of course, becomes a big change in their life stage, which affects their career. Plus, mobility comes into place when they become a trading spouse and their husband's job is moving from city to city, often country to country, and it's tough for them to keep a job down in that scenario. The third M is the largest reason behind it all, and which is motherhood. Usually, in fact, if you ask a woman how long her gap is and then how old her child is, that's usually the same number of years. And it's motherhood that really gets a huge number of women to stop working, because right now the bulk of caretaking responsibilities falls on that woman's shoulders. And the fourth M that also affect women's careers is medical care. And this is usually to the elderly. If there's a parent or a sick parent or a sick in-law, it's usually the woman who raises her hand, takes a step back to take care of them. So if we can figure out how at these different life stages, women can be supported through these difficult journeys and figure out a way for them to stay engaged with their career journeys, I think we'll be able to reverse this female brain drain.
Absolutely. In fact, Anu, coming to you as well, what is that one advice that you would want to give not only the women, but also the men supporting the women who've taken a career break?
So yeah, I took a career break recently for about 15 months, right? And I have joined back the same organization that I was in prior to my taking a break. One, of course, I like the role that I'm given now. And at the time when, you have to firstly figure out what is the reason that you left and what is the reason that you're coming back. If that is clear in your head, sometimes, it could also be that you just want to explore. Like if you've been working from the age of 18 and till the age of say 46, 47, you haven't taken a break. Probably it's a good thing for your mental wellness to actually take a break and figure out what are the other things that you need to do. So that's something I tried, and I'm not saying I succeeded. I made some money, but probably, I realized that it'll take a lot more for me to set up things from scratch. And let me tell you, it's not a dream that I don't want to take up eventually, but maybe not immediately. So one of the things that I will always advise men and women to do is taking a break is something that, one, of course, if you're eased into taking a break, then probably that is also something that is to be taken up positively, right? Do something which is relevant for you during that break. So, or if you choose that, you're not doing something, then you suddenly see that the world is coming to an end and you don't see the end of the pandemic. Many people have had to kind of had this introspection of what is it that I'm doing? Where am I? Who am I? People got a lot of time, and I am one of those people who took some action on it, right? So, so one, of course, as it's a little personal in terms of how you plan to take it up. It could be taking up new adventures, but I took up education, right? I always wanted to educate myself. So I took a proper course from NLS, and I did a PG in cyber law and cyber forensics. That I know that is going to be the future. So you'll also have to keep figuring out that if you want to sustain your career beyond your 50s, beyond your 60s also, even, you might have to look at various avenues, certain skill sets that you didn't have in your quiver earlier. Now you need to have those, arrows in your quiver as well, because the times that you are, that we are all stepping into, whether it is a man or a woman, it's going to be equally challenging for both genders, because, when I see the men and women today in their 20s and 30s, I don't think they believe too much they are far more gender agnostic than our generations. They are far more neutral in their mindset. So I think, and if we are to compete with that generation, then it's definitely something that we have to work really hard at staying relevant. And for that, not everybody needs to take a career break. But while you're at it, you just keep building on your knowledge, building on what's happening around you, and become a more wholesome global citizen than just be, at your job, doing your own thing and living in your well. So you just have to be the frog who comes out of the well and looks at the world around you.
They are taking the same question with you. Is it the psyche of the women, or is it the lack of support system that's actually refraining women from coming back to pursue their careers after a break?
Hira, frankly, I mean, in India, we're quite blessed to have good support systems. A lot of us live in joint families where we have other family members around. Also, access to cheaper childcare is much more in India than in other Western countries. Yeah, of course, there's not enough infrastructure out there from childcare perspective, but at least there's enough options of getting help in our homes. Still, you don't see women getting into the workplace, and the reason really is a mindset problem. What we need to do is we need to change mindsets when it comes to how women perceive their careers, and also the kind of messaging that we as society give women, that we as families give women, and we as employers give women. So, for example, when it comes like the kind of we will treat women as martyrs when they are sacrificing their careers for their children. There's no great thing about being a martyr. Martyrs are going to be dead. It's more important that women find their own oxygen mask first and then help others. Or as society, we constantly question women that what is the need to work? Is it their husband earning enough? Or as employers, we keep asking women that are they really serious about their careers? So I think it's more the societal messaging and communication that is sent to women that then becomes their own internal messaging for themselves.
Right. So between urban and rural India, how is the trend looking like?
It's actually worse, Cyril, in urban India. So if you look at overall women participation rates in India, it's at 20%, which, by the way, is ridiculously low given our education rates, and given the fact that China is at 60%, USA is at 55%, and male participation rates in India at 80%. So that in itself explains to you why this gender gap exists in India. But it actually gets worse in urban India, where you have even more educated women. And that number falls from the 20% overall to 15% in urban India. And the reason for that is because in India, as a family becomes more affluent, the chances of that woman working becomes even lower, because it almost becomes a status symbol that the daughter-in-law of the house doesn't need to work.
Neha, with Jobs for Her, it's not only from a business perspective, but it's also a social impact journey that you have embarked on. If you could help us understand more as to what's your experience and what is it as a trend that you're witnessing.
Sure, absolutely, Hiral. We are completely a for-profit social enterprise. And for us, it's a double bottom line. It's the financial profitability, but as well as huge societal impact. And many times I used to say that, for us, our biggest job at JobsForHer was to change mindsets. And frankly, in these 8 years, it has been extremely gratifying to see the kind of mindset changes that have happened. Of course, we have a long way to go, but I'll give you an example of the kind of changes that we're seeing. So when I started JobsForHer, at that time, employers felt comfortable enough to tell us that they don't want to hire women returnees. They don't want to hire mothers. Sometimes they don't even want to hire women because they felt that women will not be able to manage the pressures of the workplace. Today, those same employers are paying us to hire these women because they've realized that in this war for talent, if you don't have access to a wider talent pool, you're not going to be able to win. These same companies are now working with us to come up with specific programs which are only for women returnees. Other women or other men can't even apply for them. And these are usually returnee internship programs during which a woman can come back as a returnee intern, get upskilled, and then join the company as a lateral. Secondly, from a woman point of view, we are seeing a huge change as well. So in the beginning, when I started JobsForHer, I was appalled to find out that women were being told that they need to hide their break in their resume. Don't talk about it. Don't tell anybody that you've been on a break. And I was appalled to hear that, because why are we making that woman feel that she's on a back foot when she's going in for that interview? In fact, we need to get that woman to realize that that break added on to her repertoire of skills. The kind of life skills that you pick up when you are on that break. And by that break, by the way, women are, it's not like they are on a beach, and watching TV. They're there they've taken that break because of caretaking responsibilities, right? It's to take care of a child or to take care of their families or an elderly. The kind of life skills that teaches you are extremely transferable to jobs. And so we started changing the narrative when it comes to women as well, giving women that confidence to tell them that, hey, go and flaunt your break and tell the employer how it will make you a better employee for that company. And the results have been huge. I mean, we've seen women getting back to work after a break of 6 months to 16 years. We've seen women who have gotten back into, say, flexible jobs, work from home jobs from home, to senior director positions in large organizations. And the biggest change that has happened is just changing the mindset around that career break.
Really, really good points that we've heard from all the speakers today as well. And clearly, one line that we've got is that this is an opportunity for you to come back and be better than before and not really give up. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us on the show today, and wishing everyone a happy Women's Day as well once again.